So have you ever thought about like what it would take to really empower kids to not just learn about the future, but to actually create it?
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah, it is. And that's exactly what kind of got me hooked on the project that we're going to dive into today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's this really fascinating initiative happening in Oman, and it's all about connecting the power of hands-on technology with their big push for national development. So it's like they're kind of weaving these two things together in a really cool way.
It's not just about, like playing with technology for fun, right?
Yeah.
It's really about strategically developing skills and that kind of innovative mindset that will help the next generation thrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to be zeroing in on a specific research project, and it's all about developing these low-cost educational kits.
Okay.
And they're based on Arduino, which a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And these kits are specifically designed for STEM education in Oman.
Cool.
So this amazing initiative, it actually got some pretty significant funding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, through an undergraduate research grant from the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation in Oman, which is also known as MoHERI.
Okay. And
the project number for those keeping track is BFP or URGE 23024.
Gotcha.
And here's the really cool part. We've got the very expert who led this whole project joining us today to kind of walk us through it all.
Amazing.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here and share more about this work.
We're excited to have you. So really our mission for you, our listener today, is pretty clear.
Okay.
We want to understand how this project is tackling this gap, that we often see in hands-on STEM education.
Right.
Especially for students who might be in more remote areas or, places where resources are a bit more limited.
Yeah.
And we really want to dig into how it's helping to build this culture of making and exploring new things, using Arduino, which is this amazing technology that's both really powerful but also pretty easy to use.
That's great.
So to kick things off, could you tell us a bit about the kind of initial spark, the problem that really got this project started?
The main issue that we saw was that there was this real lack of, equal access to hands-on STEM learning experiences.
Makes sense.
You have some schools that have, great science labs and all the equipment, especially in cities.
Right.
But then you have a lot of other schools, especially in rural areas or places where maybe they don't have as many resources.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the same opportunities. And that's, it's not fair. And it kind of limits what these bright young students can do.
So you're essentially talking about trying to level the playing field a little bit,
Exactly. Our research was really focused on creating these Arduino kits that were not only affordable, but also really user-friendly, so that both students and teachers could use them easily, even if they didn't have a lot of technical experience.
I see.
We wanted to create something that would actually be used to teach these core concepts in electronics and coding and robotics.
Yeah.
Not just something that would sit on a shelf.
It sounds like you were thinking beyond just providing the physical tools, though, right? You talked about fostering a certain culture of learning.
That's right.
So what does that actually look like when it comes to the students themselves?
Well, the goal wasn't to just hand out a bunch of equipment and then, walk away.
I see.
We wanted to create this whole ecosystem where students would be encouraged to explore and learn on their own.
Okay.
So by giving them open source tools like Arduino and really clear instructions in both English and Arabic.
Oh, that's important.
We wanted them to feel empowered to experiment and tinker and ultimately come up with their own solutions to problems. It's about, building that fundamental kind of innovative mindset,
I like that. So let's talk about Arduino specifically for a minute. What made it, the platform of choice for this particular mission?
Well, there were a few really good reasons.
Okay.
First, it's open source, which means it's much more affordable than some of those other educational robotic systems, the proprietary ones.
Yeah.
And that was really important to us, keeping the cost down so that everyone could access it.
Absolutely.
Second, there's this huge online community around Arduino, tons of tutorials and project ideas, which makes it a lot easier for teachers and students to find help and inspiration.
Oh, that's a big plus, having that support network.
It is, yeah, it's really valuable. And third, Arduino is just so flexible. It's simple enough for beginners to understand the basics, but it's also powerful enough to handle much more complex projects as they get more advanced. Students can start with, something simple, like making an LED light blink, and then move on to building, fairly complex robots or even environmental monitoring systems that are specific to their local needs.
Wow, that's impressive. So you're talking about like a wide range of projects that they could potentially build using these kits.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few specific examples of what those projects might look like?
Sure. Imagine a student learning about how traffic lights work,
Right.
by actually building a miniature traffic light controller.
That'd be pretty cool.
Or maybe they're learning about environmental science and they build a little weather station, that measures temperature and humidity.
Oh, wow.
Or they could get into robotics and build these little robots that can navigate around obstacles or even explore smart agriculture by making a basic smart irrigation system that waters plants based on the moisture in the soil.
It's amazing to think, how much you can do with this one little board. And you mentioned how this project ties into Oman's national development goals.
Right.
So how does it specifically contribute to that big Vision 2040 plan that they have?
Well, it aligns very well with a lot of the key ideas in Vision 2040.
Okay.
Especially, the focus on diversifying the economy and investing in people.
Yeah.
So by giving young people in Oman these STEM skills, we're helping to build a workforce that's, more adaptable and innovative and ready to drive progress.
I see.
It's about preparing them to be active participants in this knowledge-based economy that benefits everyone.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the why, the vision behind this project.
Right.
But let's get into for our listeners who might be interested in doing something similar.
Okay.
So how did you actually take these kits from just an idea to something that students could hold in their hands and use?
It was a really collaborative effort.
Okay.
And one of the most important things was that it was student-led. We brought in undergrad researchers from different fields.
Oh, interesting.
Not just electronics and software engineering, but also business and other areas that you might not think are related.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that really helped because everyone brought these different perspectives and skills to the table.
I bet that was a really valuable experience for those students too.
It was, yeah. And then we really focused on designing the kits, to make sure they were comprehensive, but also really easy to use.
Okay.
So each kit has an Arduino Uno board, which is like the brain, the microcontroller.
Yeah.
And it comes with a bunch of basic sensors like light sensors and temperature sensors and ultrasonic sensors.
I see. And
we included LEDs and little motors and all the wires and stuff you need to connect everything.
So you gave them all the basic building blocks.
Exactly. And really importantly, we created these instruction booklets that were really clear and easy to understand in both English and Arabic.
Gotcha.
So no matter what language you speak, you can use the kits.
That makes them much more accessible.
Yeah. And the whole development process was very iterative. We did a lot of prototyping and testing in our robotics lab at the university.
Makes sense.
And the students were really involved in making sure that the kits and the instructions were as good as they could be.
That's great. So then you took these kits out into the real world, right, to see how they worked in actual classrooms.
That's right.
Can you tell us about that pilot testing phase and what you learned from it?
Yeah, we did the pilot testing in 2 schools in Salalah.
Okay.
And that was really important because we could actually see how the kits were being used, in a normal classroom setting.
Right.
We got feedback from the students and the teachers, and we could figure out what we needed to improve, to make the learning experience even better.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing to see how excited and engaged the students were.
What kind of impact did you see on the students and the schools overall?
It was pretty remarkable, actually. We saw students, some who had never coded before or worked with electronics. They were picking it up really quickly and starting to build these projects.
Really?
Yeah, some of them were building obstacle-avoiding robots within, a couple of hours of working with the kit.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
It was really inspiring to see.
And I bet that was really motivating for them, to see that they could actually build something that worked.
It was, yeah. It wasn't just about the building, though.
Okay.
It was about the sense of accomplishment they felt.
Yeah.
Realizing that they could use technology to create something real.
Yeah.
One student said, and I'll never forget this, he said, "I never thought I could actually build something real until today."
That's powerful.
It really is.
What about the teachers? How did they react to having these kits in their classrooms?
They loved them.
Oh, good.
They said they were really valuable tools. They made it easier to teach these concepts that are sometimes hard for students to grasp. And they said that the kits made the classroom more collaborative and creative.
Yeah.
The students were more confident, they were helping each other out, and it just created a much more positive learning environment.
So it sounds like it wasn't just about the technical skills, but also those really important, soft skills like teamwork and problem solving.
Exactly. The students were applying what they were learning, which made it more meaningful.
Yeah.
They weren't just memorizing things, they were actually using what they learned to make things work, and that made it stick with them.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact on the students, which is obviously huge.
Right.
But what about the undergrad researchers who developed these kits?
Yeah.
What did they gain from this experience?
Oh, it was really transformative for them. They learned so much.
In what ways?
They gained all these technical skills, like how to design circuit boards, how to write software, how to manage projects.
Wow.
But they also learned these really important soft skills, like teamwork, communication, problem solving.
Yeah.
And I think most importantly, they realized how technology can be used to help people.
That's great.
They saw firsthand how their skills could make a difference in the lives of others, especially in their own communities.
That's a really valuable lesson.
It is.
And has it had any impact on what they want to do in the future?
Absolutely. A lot of them are now looking for ways to share what they've learned. Some of them are planning to run workshops in their communities to teach younger kids about Arduino and robotics.
Oh, that's cool.
And some of them are even thinking about starting their own businesses based on the stuff they developed during this project.
That's amazing.
It's really inspiring to see them so motivated.
Yeah, it is. So let's step back again and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
How do you see this project and other projects like it contributing to Oman's Vision 2040 in the long term?
I think they're really crucial, actually. This project specifically addresses a few of the key objectives of Vision 2040.
Right.
First, it's helping to develop a skilled and adaptable workforce by equipping young people with these important tech skills.
Yeah.
Second, it's promoting innovation in education by introducing these hands-on learning methods that go beyond, the traditional way of teaching.
Right.
And third, it's helping with the whole digital transformation of the country by building a more digitally literate workforce.
So it's not just about bringing in new technology, it's about building capacity within the education system.
That's exactly it.
Okay. And what does the future hold for this particular project? Are there any plans to expand it?
Yeah, definitely. We have some big plans.
Okay.
We want to expand the program to more schools across Oman, especially those in remote areas.
That's great.
And we want to work with teacher training institutes to make sure that future teachers know how to use these kits effectively.
Makes sense.
And in the long term, we'd love to create a national library of these kits that schools all over the country could access.
That would be amazing. That would be really impactful. So, final question for educators and policymakers, around the world who are listening and maybe they're inspired by this project.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them if they wanted to do something similar in their own communities?
My biggest piece of advice is to start small, but think big.
I like that.
You don't need a huge budget or, fancy labs to get students excited about STEM.
Right.
Sometimes all you need is a well-designed kit that's affordable, some enthusiastic mentors, and a focus on creativity, and you can really make a difference.
That's really encouraging.
It is.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. It's so clear that technology, when it's used in the right way, with a clear purpose, can have a huge impact on education.
I agree.
And it's really encouraging to see how this project is making education more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Making sure that everyone has the opportunity to learn and grow. So for you, our listener, as you think about this project, consider what it means for STEM education, not just in Oman, but, all over the world.
Yeah.
And if you had to design an educational robotics kit yourself, what would you include? What would be the most important elements?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. It's something to think about. And thank you so much for sharing your work with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a real privilege to have you.
Yeah.
And we're excited to see where this project goes in the future.
Me too.
We'll be following along.